Good evening.
My name is Karen Marcoux, and on behalf of my husband, George Marcoux, who's somewhere, George, where are you? I don't know. But George is a fourth-generation Washingtonian, and my son, George, who probably checked you in, is a fifth-generation Washingtonian. Wow. I know, that's pretty impressive, right? So on behalf of my family and the board of the DC Statehood PAC, I would like to welcome you all here tonight. It's wonderful to see such an energetic and large and enthusiastic crowd out here for DC Statehood. Before we get started, I just want to make a few introductions and acknowledge a few of our guests. First, I'd like to quickly introduce the board of the DC Statehood PAC, and please hold your applause, and when I call your name, just like raise your hand so people can see who you are. Johnny Allen, there he is. Marcus Batchelor. Marcus back here. Hi, Marcus. Siku Biddle. Siku, you here somewhere? Haven't seen him? Okay. Franklin Garcia. I know I saw him. There you go. Robert Graham. Jamal Holtz.
Behind you, too.
Kemry Hughes. He's not here. Dylan Marshall. There he is. Thank you, Dylan. Our co-chair, Lori Masters, who's going to speak to you in a minute. Donna Potts. Donna, where are you? I know I saw you too just a minute ago. There she is, sitting down. Thorne Posen. Warner Sessions. Debbie Shore. Bruce Spiva. Okay. Shelley Tompkin. Somewhere, I know I saw her too. Okay. And our executive director, Jim Marquez. He is also speaking in a minute. I want to thank everyone who contributed so generously tonight, and a special thanks to our host committee level supporters, Carol and John Buchever, Dana and Don Lucas, Lee Reno, Sally Sloan and Tom Hentoff, Daniel Solomon, Allison Vest and Kenneth Cox, and Ariel Levinson Waldman.
Statehood!
Yeah. I'd also like to recognize DC council members who are here tonight. I know Robert White's here, and is Brooke Pinto here too? Yeah. And also our shadow senators here, Paul Strauss. And our soon-to-be Attorney General, Brian Schwab. Yay. All right. And I also want to acknowledge the support of Kenyon McDuffie and Brianna Doe, who supported even though they weren't able to be here tonight. I also want to thank my good friend Barbara Garlock, who is responsible for the beautiful quilts on display tonight. Nice. Yeah, pretty awesome, right? Barbara started the Quilts for DC Statehood project through the League of Women Voters. And please, Barbara, where are you? There she is. And please talk to Barbara if you're interested in getting involved in that project. She gave you a few talking points. They have a virtual gallery, and there's a sign-up sheet out front to be on their mailing list. There's an auction in December to raise money for DC Statehood of the quilts, and there were over 60 quilts were submitted from quilters over 15 states and DC. So that's pretty cool. And we're really excited to have those. Let's see, what else? Oh, finally, we're excited to have representatives from many of our partner organizations here who've been working on DC Statehood for decades, including DC Vote, the League of Women Voters, 51 for 51, Neighbors United for DC Statehood, and DC for Democracy. We're so excited to have with us tonight two very special guests. One's here and one's not here yet, but Representative Raskin's on his way, and Congresswoman Norton is already here. They've been champions of statehood for a long time, both of them. It's very special for me as Jamie Raskin was my con law professor who first got me interested in the issue of statehood when we staged mock trials for the DC statehood protesters after they got arrested, and that was actually 30 years ago. Wow. I know. Can't believe it. I know. I'm so old now. Before I turn it over to others to introduce them, I would like to introduce DC Statehood's PAC board chair, Lori Masters. Our fearless leader. Lori is a partner at Hunt & Williams and has been involved in DC Statehood for decades through organizations such as DC Vote and DC Appleseed. I will now turn it over to Lori to share our vision and goals of the DC Statehood PAC.
Technology. I may know statehood, technology not so much. So welcome to all of you. It's so exciting to see all of you here. This has been something we have been working on for more than a year, and I think a lot of us in the crowd here have been talking about this for a lot longer. So I don't need to say this to this crowd, but so that it's clear, we are unabashedly for DC statehood. We're going to bring it, okay? That's the message we want to take from tonight. We're Americans. We're the seat of democracy in the world, and certainly in the United States, right? We bear the responsibilities of statehood. We fight the wars. We pay the taxes. We serve on federal juries. And so if we're going to talk about taxes, I think we all know this, but let's make sure it's an underscore here. We pay more taxes, federal income taxes, than 22 states. We pay more per capita in federal taxes than anybody, any state. And yet we don't have what they have. So what do we want? Statehood.
When do we want it?
Why now? It's going to be a cheers. But let's be clear about what we're talking about here, right? We want to have what every other American has. We want full representation in the U.S. Congress. That means the House of Representatives. And in this perilous time for democracy, it means 2 senators in the U.S. Senate. And that's an important point to take to people outside of D.C. so that they understand this. We want to make sure that the federal legislature is not meddling and overturning our locally passed laws. We want to make sure we can pass a budget and spend our DC tax dollars the way we want to spend them. And let's talk a minute about what that means. We have a budget of almost $19 billion. And people say, well, there's a federal payment. All right, let's talk about the federal payment. It's about, I don't know, don't quote me. It's about $635 million. Now, I don't know much, but I pulled out, as I like to say, my pro-statehood calculator on my cell phone. And it told me that that's less than 3.5% of our budget, the federal payment. So, what's our objective? We already talked about this. We want statehood by an act of Congress. People say, a lot of people I reached out to for this event, say, well, wait a minute, doesn't that require a constitutional amendment?
No.
So I decided I'd bring what I like to call the owner's manual here. And if you look at Article 4, Section 3, there's one sentence in here that covers this issue. New states may be admitted by the Congress into this union. Period. So almost all the states, except for maybe the original 13, they were admitted by acts of Congress. So we can do this. So what is our mission? Our mission is to put pressure on federal candidates running for House of Representative and U.S. Senate seats to make sure they're supporting statehood, and if they're not, to bring it on. Now, that's not to say that there aren't a lot of groups, and I come from them, DC Vote, DC Appleseed, that have done so much to get us to this point. And you're all, I think probably everybody here has worked in those organizations over the years, right? But we're not doing what you all are doing. This is a supplement, a complement to what the C3s are doing. We can do something that they cannot do. And that is, as I said earlier, to take it directly to federal candidates, pro and con. So, I like to say, a lot of people on this little effort have heard me say, they count on us taking no for an answer. We cannot take no. We cannot let them win. So, why does it matter? Few things, because I think this gets people energized. Marijuana. 2014, 65% of us voted to legalize marijuana. Can we regulate or tax it? No. Why? Congress. What?
Oh.
Andy Harris.
Well, he had a little bit of help, I'd say. But, all right. And then I'd like to just say, I know, or maybe I should say, dare I say, Dobbs, if the GOP takes over any House of Congress, Who do you think they're coming after first? They just introduced a national abortion ban in Congress. We are first on the chopping block. And what's next after our laws protecting health care? Home rule. Home rule, signed by Richard Nixon in December 1973. That is on the chopping block too. And that's why, all of these reasons, that's why we need a statehood PAC. It can do something that others can't do, and it's one tool in our toolbox that we have not had. So, to close, and then we'll turn it over, I like to think about what Frederick Douglass said. And he said, power concedes nothing without a demand.
Yes.
This has to be part of our demand. So we need your help, we need your enthusiasm, and we need your support.
All right.
All right.
Where's Warner?
Where's Warner?
Warner's here.
Warner, you're up.
Warner session, one of our board members.
All right.
Turn.
Good job, Warner. Good evening, one and all, and thank you all for coming out on this beautiful September evening. Good job. My name is Warner Session. I'm a member of the board, and it gives me great honor and distinction to introduce a person who really needs no introduction. By any measurement, she is a living legacy. And of course, I'm talking about the Honorable Eleanor Holmes Norton. Activist, lawyer extraordinaire, professor, elected official, her body of experience spans decades. From the time she was a law student at Yale, and Bernie Dimchuk reminded me that she used to take buses late at night to go down to Mississippi to support the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee, to becoming the first woman chair of the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission, appointed by President Jimmy Carter, to becoming a tenured professor at Georgetown Law School. And of course, now our elected representative, now in her 15th year of serving as our representative in Congress. Her work, her legacy speaks for itself. I look out in the audience, I see Councilmember Robert White. He used to work for Eleanor Holmes Norton. He's not the only one. David Grosso, Keenan McDuffie, all elected to the District of Columbia Council, having served in the office of Eleanor Holmes Norton. That to me says a whole lot. She is, in her 15 years in the Congress, has been relentless, she's been tireless, and most importantly, she's been effective. Even without a vote, she has been effective. So it gives me great honor to welcome our guest of honor. And let me just say one other thing. I remember the Congresswoman giving a speech one time on statehood, and her words were, when it comes to statehood, she cautions against patience. She cautions against patience. So with no further ado, Eleanor Holmes Norton.
Well, I appreciate that very kind introduction. It makes me know that I have work to do, and that you're looking to me to make sure I do it. I thought the best thing I could do this evening is first to thank all of you for coming. It gives me, and our hostess, it gives me great pleasure to know that you have been able to get so many people to come. It's the kind of fodder I need to keep pressing the Congress to do what, believe me, is inevitable. So let me tell you a little bit about where we are. The House passed my DC statehood bill for the second time this Congress. So that means we've twice gotten through the House. Now, I know that takes another House. But we're also doing well in the Senate. We have gotten 46 supporters in the Senate. Understand that there are 50 members there, 50. So we're getting very close in the Senate as well. And last year, the Senate had its second ever hearing on DC statehood. Now, one of the problems we have is being alone. Every time that there has been a state to enter the Union, it has been a Democratic state and a Republican state. At the moment, we do not have a Republican state. So we've done all of this, you have done all of this on our own, and look how far we have gotten. Now, in terms of qualifications, we have more than met them. We've got 700,000 residents. That's more than the residents of at least 2 states that are already states. And look at how productive we are. Gross national product, more than 17 states. But my favorite is we pay more federal income taxes than any state. That right there ought to be all you need to qualify you for DC statehood. Now, don't think we're not getting anywhere. The best evidence is of a poll that is taken every other year. And that poll shows that 54%, that's more than half, of the American people support DC statehood. So I indicate that to you to make you know that all of your work is building. And when you have it building to this kind of crescendo, if we keep working, very soon I will be looking at the residents of the 51st state of the United States of America.
A new flag.
Yeah.
All right, we're going to go a little out of order. Representative Raskin was going to speak next, but he's still on his way. He should be here shortly. So I think we're going to turn it over to Jim Arcadis, our what chief strategist.
Something like that. I'm going to steal that. Hi, Warner. Nice to meet you. Okay, hello and good evening. I realize that to use an old cliche, I am one of the few last people standing between you and your next cocktail, so I'm going to try to be brief. My name is Jim Arcadis, and I am somewhere between the cruise director and chief strategist of this organization, trying to move us forward. A lot of wonderful people have been here who are involved in the fundraising, who are involved in the community building, who are involved in so many other wonderful organizations. I'm sort of been charged with trying to get us from point A to B. We've been working we first started talking about this organization a year ago. Just to get to tonight, it has taken a year. It has been a slow start, but that's okay, right? That's what happens. You sort of gradually build towards these things. What I'm going to run down is kind of our political strategy to sort of see how we're going to achieve what we're going to achieve. I think it's really important to understand our lane in the road that Lori mentioned a few minutes ago. There are lots of wonderful organizations advocating for this cause. We are the only organization that can put direct political pressure on members of the House and the Senate to vote, and more importantly, be afraid of their publics if they do not vote for this issue. Right? That is our niche, and that is the lane in the road that we are going to stay in. Second, I think it's also really important to talk about how single issue organizations can so effectively do this. right? When you think about well-known political organizations, activist organizations in and around Washington, D.C., you think of NARAL and Planned Parenthood and the Victory Fund and all the pro-Israel groups. That is because their missions are easy to define and repeat. Our mission is very easy to define and repeat and communicate to core audiences why we have to achieve what we're going to achieve. So, the first thing that we're charged with, in order to put pressure on politicians to eventually vote for DC statehood, is that we have to nationalize the conversation. Representative Holmes Norton mentioned 54% of the country is in favor of DC statehood. That's amazing. But they're sitting around on their couches and don't feel that it's something that they have a stake in. Our job through this organization is to educate the public so that they put pressure on their representatives because they believe that they have a stake in the disenfranchisement of 700,000 taxpaying Americans in the federal district. So how do we do that? Step one is to build credibility, which is what this past year has been about. We had to do very basic things starting out, like getting a website, building a style guide, getting a logo, all of that, sort of figuring out when we were going to hold an event, who was going to speak at the event, like really basic stuff, so that when we showed up, this group of people tonight, it wasn't a complete and embarrassing failure. Good news, right? It hasn't been. So we've done the first step. It's taken a long time. The next thing we have to do is continue to build that credibility. And I will put a plug out. Today, we released our first video. So, we've worked on it for several months. Go to our Twitter handle. Everybody please get out your phone and actually do this. It will be helpful. Get out, open Twitter, you all have it. Go to @DC Statehood PAC, that is our handle, and you will see a nice video there. It's 30 seconds long. It features faces waving at you, right? And saying, we're taxpaying American citizens. The point of this video is to help educate the country that we're normal people in this federal district. We have families and friends all over the place. We are not a bunch of slimy lobbyists and politicians. Most of us aren't anyway. Some of you, I'm sure, are. And that's okay. You're people too. Right? But the point is to humanize Washington, D.C. and to take it away from this idea that it is the swamp. Okay? So that's how we build credibility. Our first, and if we're to think of expanding circles for who we're going to reach, the first audience of people we're going to talk to is essentially the progressive base, right? Those are people who understand that DC statehood is important, that 700,000 taxpaying American citizens are disenfranchised, but they don't understand what's in it for them, right? We're going to tell them what's in it for them. What's in it for them is 2 senators, right? We're going to start making that case. And that's going to drive interest, that's going to drive activation, and that's going to drive money. Because we need lots of money. We need lots of money. I'll repeat that a few times. We need lots of money. Please help with that. Second, right? Then once we get those people, the next thing we have to do is understand how we're going to communicate with people beyond that narrow band. So the second layer of circle is essentially the moderates, the independents, right? And we don't quite know how to talk to those people, in all honesty. It's very nice to say, gosh, we really wish we had a vote. It's quite another thing to convince them about their stake in our vote, so that they put pressure on their politicians to support our vote, right? And so the next thing we're going to do is, quite honestly, we have to hire a research firm to do a lot of polling and focus groups to understand what messages move those audiences, okay? That takes money. Okay. I didn't anticipate giving such a hard sell, but here we are. Okay? And then the third thing we have to do is scale the operation. Right? This is not, unfortunately, a short-term win. Right? If we're lucky enough to do some questions, I anticipate people will ask the question, hey, what are we doing for the midterms? We don't have that much of the green stuff in the bank right now. Okay? We know that Representative Holmes Norton has done wonderful work passing a bill twice through the U.S. House. That's incredible. We know that there are 46 senators who have co-sponsored similar legislation in the Senate, right? We've got to get to the next level. We've got to put pressure on those politicians through their publics, because the publics realize or will realize what stake they have in our vote. And we have to figure out what messages moves those people, right? Once we do that, we can scale and build for the long term so that DC statehood is consistently on the minds of people in the same way that other similar single issue groups have done successfully over the course of the last several decades in DC. So, go to Twitter, check out the video, follow the page, retweet it, help us out. Thank you very much.
Great honor to introduce Congressman Jamie Raskin. As most of you know, Jamie represents the 8th Congressional District of the U.S. House of Representatives. Most of you know he's a former constitutional law professor and Maryland State Senator, and most of you saw Jamie serve as the House impeachment manager during the former President Trump's second impeachment. I mean, you gotta take a number there on the impeachments.
Everybody's going to get a term.
How many more? I don't know what we got going there. You've seen his service on the House Select Committee investigating the January 6th attack on the U.S. Capitol. And thank you for your service on that, Congressman. And you also know he is the author of the powerful and deeply personal book, Trauma, Truth, and the Trials of American Democracy. Most of you probably don't know, although Karen mentioned this earlier, that Jamie was Karen and my law professor at American University's Washington College of Law. So Karen and I are especially aware of the depths of Jamie's love of the law, passion for justice, and encyclopedic knowledge of our Constitution. And it is precisely those qualities in Jamie that make us so happy that you are here with us tonight. Time and again, Jamie has championed the cause of the District of Columbia, has fought with us for statehood, for justice, and for the freedoms most Americans outside of D.C. take for granted. He has relentlessly and passionately argued how and why we, citizens of the district, deserve the dignity and basic human rights of self-determination and, yes, statehood. And he has done it not for any personal or political gain. In fact, and this may be a surprise to you here, and you may need to leave us, but few of us here could actually vote for you in November.
What if we could?
We would if we could. I'm sure we all would if we could. But he's done those things and he's done them for years and years and years. Karen was mentioning earlier that I believe she said 30 years ago. Years and years when she was in your class. That was way before my time. You've done those things because it's right, and you believe in what's right. And it's with that that it is my great privilege to, without any further ado, to present to all of you Congressman Jamie Raskin.
Thank you. Well, thank you, Thorne, for that beautiful speech. I got all my prize pupils here tonight. And I've gotten old enough that I'm surrounded by my students, and they're all making me proud every day in the stuff that they do, including some colleagues in Congress like Stacey Plaskett, who was my student. She was kind of your vintage, I think. Yeah. So yeah, but Karen and George, thank you for having us here, and I'm so proud of everything that you guys have done with the volunteer lawyers and with DC and empowering the people of Washington. I want to thank you all for being here and for being part of this incredibly important cause. And I want to thank you also for having a true, authentic, legitimate political grievance and not storming the Capitol and killing people. And not beating up our
Oh my gosh.
I want to thank you for doing it the right way, convening a statehood convention, writing a new constitution for the state, petitioning for statehood. And I told you, and a lot of these people, certainly my students were with me when I ran for Congress, I said that as long as you don't have a voting member of Congress, I will stand with Eleanor, Holmes, Norton, and I will be your voting member of Congress. And I will make sure that we bring the DC statehood legislation to the floor, and we did not once but twice, and we passed it both times in the House of Representatives. And I don't know if Eleanor is here tonight. Congresswoman Eleanor Holmes Norton. Who has been, wow, such an unswerving and historic champion of this important cause. Look, Tocqueville said in Democracy in America that in our country, democracy and voting rights are either shrinking and subsiding and shriveling away, or they're growing and they're expanding. And we've been in a contractionary period, both with the Supreme Court, which gave us Shelby County versus Holder, which completely eviscerated the Voting Rights Act, and with the GOP, which has been engaged in voter suppression tactics all over America, which has been gerrymandering us into oblivion in states across the country, which has been using the filibuster as a weapon of the minority to destroy voting rights legislation like the For the People Act and the John Lewis Voting Rights Act, and even using the Electoral College, which is in the Constitution, unlike those other things, in order to entrench the minority. And when the Electoral College has given us 5 popular vote losers in American history, twice in this century. So, look, the people here tonight are on the side of the vast majority of America, and the vast majority of America are with us on the pro-democracy side. The vast majority. And what they've got on the other side is a bag of tricks, anti-democratic tricks. And we've got to strike them down one by one. The gerrymandering of our districts, the voter suppression tactics, their elimination of weekend voting and early voting and mail-in balloting, their use of the filibuster, which is not in the Constitution, which is not in federal law, which is a rule of the Senate with already more than 100 exceptions to it, including the Budget Reconciliation Act and the Trade Adjustment Act and judicial nominations and on and on. If we can do it for all those things, do you think that we can put it in for voting rights and for statehood and for democracy issues, that we can get rid of the filibuster as an obstacle to democracy? So I'm with John Dewey, who said that the only solution to the ills of democracy is more democracy. That's the way you do it. You get rid of the obstacles to democracy. And how do you get real democracy in America? It's through statehood, which is why 37 of our 50 states, 75% of our states, were admitted through the statehood process. That's all we're asking for. Let's be true to the democratic spirit of the Constitution. This is how it's done. And it's not just that DC needs the people of America to stand up for democracy here, but America needs the people of DC to make democracy real in the whole country. We need the admission of statehood for DC. We need the admission of Puerto Rico as a new state. 3.5 million of our brothers and sisters, American citizens, who are completely locked out. But here we got 713,000 tax-paying, draftable citizens who are the only residents of a national capital on the planet Earth who are disenfranchised in their own national parliament, in their own national legislature. If you told the people of Paris that they could not be represented in l'Assemblée Nationale because they breathe the same air occasionally as the members representing the people from the provinces, you would have another French Revolution on your hands. So I commend you for staying nonviolent, but I recommend to you that you get more impatient and more indignant, because we need statehood, and that means we need a statehood PAC. We need to be fighting for strong Democrats and Republicans who will support statehood all over the country. And I don't think any Republicans are supporting us yet, which is unfortunate because that's an historical departure from where they used to be. So in the meantime, I'll leave you with the rallying cry I'm giving to people all over the country when I go campaigning, because everybody says, what's the message? And we need a message, and you guys got to be messaging and all that. And so, very simple, because I'm a teacher. So please teach your children, and teach your grandchildren, and teach every young person you know. Everything you need to know about voting in 2022 is everything you need to know about driving. If you want to go forward, you put it in D. If you want to go backwards, you put it in R. That's all you need to know. Thank you very much, everybody.